I'm Jane Phillips, and at 50, I thought I'd seen every kind of storm this Oklahoma land could throw at me. Turns out I was dead wrong. The morning started normal enough. Coffee black, boots on, heading out to check on the horses before the heat got unbearable. Thunder was already rumbling in the distance, which meant I'd need to get the animals settled early. The radio crackled with severe weather warnings as I filled water troughs. Tornado watch in effect for Canadian County through 8 p.m., the weatherman announced. I'd heard it 1,000 times before. What I hadn't expected was the brunette in the beat-up research van pulling into Murphy's gas station just as the first real winds started whipping through the trees. I was there buying supplies, watching the sky turn that sickly green color that meant serious business. Her vehicle was loaded with equipment I couldn't identify, and she was cursing like a sailor at whatever wasn't working. The storm was building fast, the kind that could turn deadly in minutes. "Equipment failure," she called out to me, her voice carrying over the increasing wind. Perfect damn timing. I looked at her vehicle, then at the approaching wall cloud. "You're not driving anywhere in that death trap." "I have to. This storm system is exactly what I've been tracking for weeks." She was maybe 30-something, with fierce green eyes and an intensity that matched the approaching weather. Her hair whipped around her face as she fought with some kind of meteorological device. "Listen, I don't know what kind of research you're doing, but you're about to become part of the weather data if you don't get to shelter." The storm hit the gas station like a freight train. Windows rattled, and even the sturdy buildings seemed to shake. We ended up pressed together in my truck cab, watching the chaos outside. "I'm Chloe Torres," she said during a brief lull in the wind. "Storm chaser. Well, meteorologist technically. Jane Phillips, horse rancher." I couldn't help but notice how she studied everything with scientific curiosity, even trapped in a storm. "You do this for a living?" "Chase storms?" "Yeah. Study them, predict them, try to understand what makes them tick." She pointed at the swirling clouds. "This one's a beauty. Classic supercell structure." I thought she was crazy, but there was something magnetic about her passion. The way she talked about weather patterns like other people discussed movies or sports. When she looked at me instead of the storm, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. "You live out here alone?" she asked. "Just me and about 20 horses. Been running the ranch since my ex-husband decided city life suited him better." I surprised myself by sharing that much. The storm passed after what felt like hours. When we finally climbed out of the truck, the air smelled clean and electric. Chloe was already pulling out her phone, probably checking weather data. "I owe you," she said. "For the shelter, I mean." "Don't mention it." I handed her my card, the one with the ranch information. "If you're studying local weather patterns, you might find our area interesting. We get some unique storm formations out there." She took the card, her fingers brushing mine for just a moment longer than necessary. "I might take you up on that." As she arranged for her vehicle to be towed, I found myself hoping she would. 3 days later, Chloe showed up at my ranch, driving a replacement vehicle that looked even more battered than the first one. I was in the paddock working with a particularly stubborn mare when I heard the engine approaching. "Hope you meant it about studying weather patterns," she called out, climbing from the driver's seat with an armload of equipment. Truth was, I'd been thinking about her more than I cared to admit. Those green eyes, the way she'd looked at the storm like it was a work of art instead of a threat. "Always room for one more crazy person around here," I said, leading the mare back to her stall. Chloe spent the afternoon setting up monitoring equipment around the property, explaining how the open plains and elevation changes created unique atmospheric conditions. I found myself following her around like a curious kid, asking questions I'd never thought to ask before. "See how the wind patterns shift right here?" She pointed to a spot where the land dipped slightly. "Creates a microclimate that can intensify storm development." I was watching her more than the weather instruments. The way she moved with purpose, completely absorbed in her work. When she bent over to adjust a sensor, I caught myself staring and forced my attention back to her words. "You really love this stuff," I said. "Weather doesn't lie. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not." She straightened up, brushing dirt from her hands. "People could learn from storms." By evening, we were sitting on my porch with cold beers, watching clouds build on the horizon. The conversation had shifted from meteorology to more personal territory. "Can I ask you something?" Chloe set down her bottle and turned to face me directly. "Shoot. What happened with your marriage? I mean, if you want to talk about it." I considered deflecting, but something about her directness made me want to be honest. He wanted things I couldn't give him. Traditional things. White picket fence, dinner parties, being the perfect rancher's wife who smiled and looked pretty. "And what did you want?" "To run my own life. Make my own choices." I paused, studying her face in the fading light. To be attracted to someone who understood passion for something bigger than themselves. The air between us shifted, charged like the atmosphere before lightning strikes. Chloe leaned closer, and I could smell her shampoo mixed with the scent of approaching rain. "Jane," she said softly, "I think you're the most interesting woman I've met in years." Before I could overthink it, she kissed me. Gentle at first, then deeper when I didn't pull away. Her lips tasted like beer and possibility, and I felt something wake up inside me that had been sleeping for too long. When we broke apart, thunder rumbled in the distance. "Well," I said, trying to steady my breathing, "that's one way to study atmospheric pressure." She laughed, a sound that made my chest tighten with something I wasn't ready to name yet. "The storm's moving in. Should I head back to town?" I looked at the approaching clouds, then at her. "Roads might be dangerous. You could stay in the guest room." "Is that what you want? The guest room?" I stood up, extending my hand to her. "No, it's not." We went inside together as the first raindrops began to fall, and I knew my carefully ordered life was about to change in ways I couldn't predict. The morning after brought awkwardness I wasn't prepared for. Chloe was already up when I stumbled to the kitchen, fully dressed and checking weather data on her laptop, like nothing had happened between us. "Coffee's fresh," she said without looking up. Professional. Distant. I poured a cup and tried to read her mood. "Sleep okay?" "Fine. Looks like we'll have clear skies for the next few days. Perfect for equipment calibration." So we were back to talking about weather. I could play that game if she wanted to pretend our kiss meant nothing, but damn if it didn't sting a little. Over the next week, Chloe established a routine. She'd arrive mid-morning, work with her instruments, share lunch, then leave before dinner. Always polite, always focused on the science. Never mentioning what happened on the porch. I started finding excuses to be wherever she was working. Bringing water, asking questions about atmospheric pressure, anything to stay close to her. She was patient with my curiosity, explaining wind shear and temperature gradients like I actually understood half of it. "Why meteorology?" I asked one afternoon as she adjusted a weather station near the barn. "Started with hurricanes when I was a kid in Florida. Watched one tear through our neighborhood, and instead of being scared, I was fascinated." She tightened a bolt with more force than necessary. "My parents thought I was weird. Were you?" "Probably. Still am." She glanced at me, something vulnerable flickering across her face. "Most people don't get it. The attraction to dangerous things." The double meaning wasn't lost on me. Maybe they're just afraid of what they don't understand. That evening, instead of leaving, Chloe lingered on the porch. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, and I brought out 2 beers without being asked. "Jane," she said after a long silence, "I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. Here it comes. The speech about how kissing me was a mistake. I haven't been with many women. I mean, I know I'm attracted to them, but I've mostly dated men because it was easier. She turned the bottle in her hands. Safer. "And now? Now I can't stop thinking about you. About how you make me feel like I don't have to explain myself or apologize for who I am." Relief flooded through me. "Chloe, I'm 19 years older than you. I've been married. I have a failing ranch and more baggage than American Airlines. Do you think I care about any of that?" She moved closer on the porch swing, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her green eyes. "What do you care about?" I asked. "You. The way you talk to your horses like they're family." How you fix everything yourself instead of calling for help. The way you kissed me back like you'd been waiting for it as long as I had. This time when she leaned in, I was ready. The kiss was different from the first one. Hungrier. More certain. Her hand found the back of my neck, fingers threading through my hair. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against mine. "I want to stay tonight," she whispered. "Not in the guest room." "Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back to just weather talk." I stopped wanting weather talk the day I met you. I stood up and held out my hand. "Then let's stop pretending this isn't happening." She took my hand, and we walked inside together. No more dancing around the attraction that had been building between us. No more professional distance. As I led her toward my bedroom, thunder rumbled somewhere in the distance, but for once, neither of us was thinking about the weather. The next morning, I woke up alone in my bed with the scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen. For a moment, I panicked, thinking Chloe had bolted after what happened between us. But then I heard her humming, and relief washed over me. I found her making breakfast in nothing but my old flannel shirt, her hair messy from sleep. The sight hit me harder than I expected. "Morning," she said, not looking up from the eggs she was scrambling. "Hope you don't mind. I raided your kitchen." Mind? Hell no. I wrapped my arms around her waist from behind, breathing in the smell of her hair. This is the best wake-up call I've had in years. She leaned back against me, and I felt her relax. No regrets? Only that we waited so long to stop dancing around this. The days that followed blurred together in the best possible way. Chloe still maintained her weather monitoring routine, but now she stayed every night. We fell into an easy rhythm that felt more natural than anything I'd experienced in my marriage. She helped with morning chores, learning to handle the horses with surprising skill for a city girl. I started understanding her work better, even helping carry equipment when she needed to adjust sensors. "You're a quick learner," she said one afternoon as I held a ladder steady while she installed a new anemometer. "Good teacher," I replied, trying not to focus on how her jeans hugged her curves as she reached overhead. "Jane Phillips, are you checking out my ass?" "Maybe." She climbed down and kissed me right there in the middle of the pasture, her hands gripping my shirt like she couldn't get close enough. When we broke apart, both breathless, she had that look in her eyes that I was learning to recognize. "The horses are watching," I said weakly. "They'll get over it." That evening, as we sat on the porch sharing a bottle of wine, Chloe got quiet. I could tell something was weighing on her mind. "What is it?" I asked. "I've been thinking about us, about what this means." My chest tightened. Having second thoughts? No, the opposite. She turned to face me fully. "Jane, I know we haven't been together long, but I've never felt this way about anyone, man or woman." "Chloe." Let me finish. "I know there's an age difference. I know people will have opinions. But when I'm with you, none of that matters. You make me feel like I can be completely myself." I reached for her hand. "You can be, always." "Then why do I feel like you're holding something back?" She was right. And we both knew it. I'd been protecting myself, keeping one foot out the door just in case this whole thing fell apart. "Because women like you don't usually stick around places like this," I said honestly. "Eventually you'll get a better job offer or decide you want someone closer to your own age and I'll be left picking up the pieces. Women like me? Smart, ambitious, young enough to have real choices." Chloe stood up and pulled me to my feet. "Jane Phillips, you are the most stubborn, beautiful, infuriating woman I've ever met. And if you think I'm going anywhere, you're dead wrong." She kissed me then, fierce and demanding, her hands tangling in my hair. I lost myself in the taste of her, the way she pressed against me like she was trying to merge our bodies into one. When we finally made it inside, she led me to the bedroom with a determination that made my pulse race. We made love with an intensity that surprised us both, every touch and kiss carrying the weight of promises we weren't quite ready to speak aloud. Afterwards, we lay tangled together, her head on my chest, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. I meant what I said out there, she whispered against my skin. Which part? All of it. But especially the part about not going anywhere. I held her tighter, finally allowing myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was real. 3 weeks passed in a haze of contentment I'd forgotten was possible. Chloe had basically moved in without us officially discussing it. Her clothes hung next to mine in the closet. Her laptop claimed permanent residence on my kitchen table, and her weather equipment dotted my property like metallic flowers. I'd catch myself smiling while doing mundane chores, remembering how she kissed my neck that morning, or the way she laughed at my terrible jokes. The woman had turned me into a lovesick teenager at 50, and I didn't even care. "You're glowing," Heather commented one morning as we loaded feed. My ranch hand had worked for me for 5 years and never minced words. "Don't be ridiculous. Jane, you've been humming while mucking stalls. Either you've lost your mind or that storm chaser is doing something very right." I couldn't argue with that logic. Chloe emerged from the barn just then, carrying coffee for all 3 of us. She'd taken to helping with morning chores, claiming it helped her understand local wind patterns. I suspected she just liked being close to me. "Ladies," she said, handing out mugs. "Perfect conditions for data collection today. Clear skies, steady barometric pressure. You two are disgustingly domestic," Heather muttered, but she was smiling. That afternoon, Chloe was unusually quiet while reviewing her research data. I found her frowning at her laptop screen on the porch. "Problem with the equipment?" I asked. "No, the data's good. Actually, it's better than good." She looked up at me with excitement. "Jane, I think I've documented something significant here. The microclimate patterns around your property are unlike anything I've seen." "Meaning what?" "Meaning I might have enough for a major research paper. Maybe even a presentation at the National Weather Association conference." The pride in her voice made my chest swell. "That's incredible, Chloe. When's the conference?" "December. In Chicago." Her expression shifted slightly. It would be huge for my career. Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside. "You should absolutely go." That evening, we were settling into our usual post-dinner routine when Chloe's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and frowned. "It's my mom. I should take this." She stepped outside, and through the window, I watched her pace the porch. Even from inside, I could tell the conversation was intense. When she came back in 20 minutes later, her face was pale. "What's wrong?" "My mom had a stroke. She's in the hospital in Chicago." Chloe's voice was shaky. "My sister says it's serious. I need to go." The bottom dropped out of my world. "Of course. When?" "Tonight. I can drive through the night and be there by morning." She was already moving toward the bedroom, pulling clothes from drawers. I followed her, watching helplessly as she packed with efficient panic. "Chloe, slow down. Let me help." She stopped suddenly and turned to me, tears threatening to spill over. "Jane, I don't know how long I'll need to be gone. If she needs extended care, if there are complications." "Hey." I pulled her into my arms. "We'll figure it out. Your mom needs you right now. Everything else can wait. But the research, the ranch, us, we'll all be here when you get back." I kissed her forehead, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. "Your family comes first." An hour later, I watched her taillights disappear down my driveway. The ranch felt impossibly empty without her energy filling the spaces. She called from the road around midnight, her voice thick with exhaustion and worry. "The doctors say the next 40 to 8 hours are critical," she said. "Jane, I'm scared." "I know, sweetheart. But your mom's tough, right? She raised you." A watery laugh. "Yeah, she is tough. Then hold on to that. And call me tomorrow, okay? No matter what time." "I love you," she said quietly, and my heart clenched. "I love you too. Drive safe." After she hung up, I sat on my empty porch and tried not to think about how quickly everything could change. 3 hours ago, we were planning weekend projects. Now she was racing toward a family crisis that could keep us apart indefinitely. The weather monitoring equipment she'd left behind, blinked silently in the darkness, recording data for research that suddenly seemed less important than the woman who'd collected it. The first 2 weeks apart were manageable. Chloe called every day, sometimes twice. Her mother was stable but would need months of rehabilitation. We video chatted when possible, her tired face filling my laptop screen as she updated me from hospital waiting rooms. "I miss you," she'd say, and I'd tell her the same, trying to keep my voice steady. "The ranch feels too quiet without you," I admitted during one late-night call. "I miss the horses. And your terrible coffee." "My coffee's not terrible. It could strip paint, Jane." Even stressed and exhausted, she could make me laugh. By the third week, the calls became shorter, less frequent. She was dealing with insurance, finding rehabilitation facilities, coordinating with her sister. I understood, but the silence stretched between us like a growing chasm. Then the messages started. The first one came through text while I was feeding the horses. From Chloe's number, but something felt off about the tone. "Jane, I'm in trouble. Mom's medical bills are crushing us. Can you send money, just until insurance kicks in?" I stared at the message. Chloe had never asked me for money, never even hinted at financial problems. When I tried calling, it went straight to voicemail. The next day, another message. "Emergency surgery needed. Need $5,000 immediately. Western Union to Chicago. Please hurry." My gut screamed that something was wrong, but what if it was real? What if Chloe was too proud to ask directly, and had someone else send the message? I drove to town and wired $2,000, compromise money that felt both generous and cautious. The messages continued. More medical emergencies, more urgent requests. Each time I tried calling, no answer. When I finally reached the hospital directly, they had no record of additional surgeries for Maria Torres. That's when panic set in. I'd been sending money for a week to someone who wasn't Chloe. "Heather, I think I've been scammed," I told my ranch hand, while she helped me sort through printed screenshots of the messages. "These don't sound like her," Heather agreed. "Too desperate. Chloe would drive back here and rob a bank before she'd beg through text messages." The total damage was $12,000. Money I couldn't afford to lose. Money that represented months of feed, veterinary bills, property taxes. The ranch had been struggling before this hit, but now we were facing a crisis that could cost me everything. I tried reaching Chloe through every avenue I could think of. Social media accounts showed no recent activity. Her research colleagues hadn't heard from her in days. The hospital said her mother was discharged to a rehabilitation facility, but they couldn't provide details. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the doubt creeping in, poisoning every memory of our time together. Had any of it been real? Was I just a lonely middle-aged woman who'd been played by someone young and clever enough to exploit my feelings? I spent sleepless nights replaying conversations, looking for signs I'd missed, the way she'd appeared at my ranch so conveniently, how quickly she'd moved in, whether her interest in weather patterns had been genuine or just an elaborate setup. "Stop torturing yourself," Heather said, finding me staring at my laptop screen for the 100th time, trying to trace the scam messages. Even if someone is using her phone, that doesn't mean she's part of it. Then where is she? Why hasn't she called? I wanted to believe Heather was right, but the silence was destroying me. Every day without contact felt like confirmation that I'd been a fool. The bank called on a Thursday morning. 3 more attempted withdrawals from my account, all blocked by fraud protection. Someone had my information and was systematically trying to drain every penny I had. I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by bills I couldn't pay, looking at weather monitoring equipment that reminded me of promises someone might never have meant to keep. The ranch that had been in my family for 30 years was slipping away, and the woman I'd fallen in love with had vanished like morning mist. My phone buzzed with another text from Chloe. "Jane, please call. I can explain everything." This time, I deleted it without reading it twice. Whoever was behind this could go to hell. I was done being anyone's victim. I was in the middle of researching bankruptcy lawyers when Heather burst through my kitchen door without knocking. "Jane, get out here. Now." The urgency in her voice made me drop everything and follow her outside. A familiar beat-up research vehicle was pulling into my driveway, and my heart stopped. Chloe climbed out looking like hell. Thinner than I remembered. Dark circles under her eyes, her clothes wrinkled like she'd been wearing them for days. She approached cautiously, as if I might bolt. "Jane, thank God you're here. I've been driving for 18 hours straight. You've got some nerve showing up now." The words came out colder than I intended, but the pain of the past month was too raw. "I know how this looks, but I can explain." "Explain what? How you disappeared for weeks while someone used your phone to steal my money? How you've been ignoring my calls while I lost $12,000 I didn't have?" Her face went white. "What are you talking about?" "I lost my phone 3 weeks ago. The hospital said someone turned it in, but when I got it back, everything was wiped clean." "Convenient story. Jane, please. Just listen to me for 5 minutes." Heather stepped between us. "Chloe, where the hell have you been? Jane's been going crazy trying to reach you." My mom had complications. Infection, then pneumonia. She was in intensive care for 2 weeks. I practically lived at the hospital. Chloe pulled out a new phone, scrolling through something. "Look, here's the hospital, discharge papers, dated yesterday. I drove straight here as soon as she was stable. The documents looked real, but I'd been fooled before. That doesn't explain the money requests." "What money requests?" The confusion in her voice seemed genuine, but I was too hurt to trust my judgment. $12,000, Chloe. Sent to Western Union based on messages from your phone. Emergency surgeries, medical bills, all of it bullshit. She sank onto my porch steps like her legs had given out. "Oh God, Jane, I never sent those messages." "I haven't had access to that phone in weeks." "Prove it." "How can I prove something I didn't do?" Her voice cracked. "You think I would scam you? After everything we shared? I don't know what to think anymore." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "The woman I love is standing 10 feet away acting like I'm a stranger. My mother almost died. I've been living on hospital vending machine food and 3 hours of sleep for a month. And now I find out someone's been stealing from you using my identity." Something in her voice broke through my anger. This wasn't the calculated manipulation of a con artist. This was exhaustion and heartbreak and genuine confusion. "Jane," Heather said quietly, "look at her. Really look at her." I did. The woman standing in my driveway was not someone who'd been living well off stolen money. She was someone who'd been through hell and driven 18 hours just to get back to me. "We need to call the police," I said finally. "Report the fraud. Figure out who's been using your phone." Relief flooded her face. "Yes. Whatever it takes to clear this up." The next few hours were a blur of police reports and phone calls to banks and Western Union. The detective explained how easy it was for scammers to clone phone numbers and target victims through social media research. "They probably studied your relationship online," Officer Martinez explained. "Found photos, posts, enough information to make the scam believable." Chloe sat beside me on the couch, close enough to touch but maintaining careful distance. I could feel her wanting to reach for me, but the trust between us felt fragile, damaged. "The money's probably gone," the detective said. "These scams are usually run from overseas, but we'll do what we can." After the police left, we sat in awkward silence. Everything I'd wanted to say during the week she was gone suddenly felt impossible to voice. "I should have called you from the hospital," she said finally. "Found a way to stay in touch. Your mom was dying. I get it." "No, you don't." She turned to face me. "I was scared, Jane. Scared of watching my mom slip away. Scared of being responsible for her care. Scared that you'd realize how complicated my life was and decide it wasn't worth it." "So you just disappeared?" "I was planning to come back, to figure out how to make it work between Chicago and here. But then my phone got stolen, and everything went to hell, and by the time I could think straight, it had been too long." I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, and finding only exhaustion and regret. "Chloe, $12,000. The ranch is in serious trouble." "I know, and I'm going to help fix it." How? I don't know yet. But we'll figure it out. Together. She reached for my hand tentatively. If you'll let me. The touch of her fingers against mine felt like coming home after a long, cold journey. Chloe stayed that night, but we slept in separate rooms. Too much hurt still hung between us, and neither of us was ready to pretend everything was fine just because we'd cleared up the scam. She spent the next morning on the phone with her research contacts, and I could hear the desperation in her voice as she explained her situation. By afternoon, she'd managed something I wouldn't have thought possible. The National Weather Service wants to fund a permanent research station here, she announced, bursting into the barn where I was working. They've been looking for a location with your exact atmospheric conditions. I stopped brushing the mare I was grooming. What does that mean? It means they'll pay rent for the land, provide equipment, and hire me to run the operation. Jane, this could save the ranch. The idea was almost too good to believe. How much money are we talking about? Enough to cover your mortgage payments and then some. Plus, I'd be here full-time instead of just visiting. Hope flickered in my chest, but I tamped it down. And your mom? She's stabilizing. My sister found a good facility near her apartment. Mom will have care, and I can visit regularly. Chloe stepped closer. This could work, if you want it to work. Over the next week, she threw herself into making it happen. Phone calls with government agencies, site surveys with National Weather Service officials, paperwork that made my head spin. Watching her fight for us, for the ranch, for our future together, slowly melted the ice around my heart. The weather station proposal was approved on a Friday. That evening, we celebrated with steaks on the grill and a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. I can't believe you pulled this off, I said, watching her across the porch table. We pulled it off. This is your land, your dream. I just found a way to make it sustainable. Why? The question had been eating at me for days. Why fight so hard for this? For us? You could have any job, any life you wanted. She set down her wine glass and looked at me seriously. Because I love you. Not just the butterflies in the stomach feeling, but the deep down certainty that you're the person I want to build a life with. Even after everything that happened? The suspicion, the accusations? Jane, we survived having our trust shattered by circumstances beyond our control. If we can get through that, we can get through anything. She was right, but something still held me back from fully embracing what she was offering. Later that night, as we cleaned up dinner dishes together, the familiar rhythm of domestic partnership almost made me forget the weeks of separation and doubt. Almost. You're still holding back, Chloe observed, drying a plate. I can feel it. I'm trying not to. But... I turned to face her, dish towel in my hands. But I'm 50 years old, and I've learned that when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. This isn't too good to be true. This is just good. Two people who love each other figuring out how to make it work. She moved closer, taking the towel from my hands and setting it aside. Jane, I drove 18 hours straight because I couldn't stand another day away from you. I spent a week fighting bureaucracy because I want to wake up in your bed every morning. What more proof do you need that this is real? When she put it that way, my fears seemed foolish. But fear doesn't listen to logic. I need you to be sure, I said. Because if you change your mind, if you decide this life isn't enough, it'll destroy me. Then, I guess I better not change my mind. She kissed me then, soft and sure, and I felt the last of my resistance crumble. This was the woman who'd chosen me, chosen us, chosen this complicated life we were building together. We made love that night, with an intensity born of reunion and resolution. Every touch carried the weight of promises we were finally ready to make. Every kiss sealed our commitment to weather whatever storms lay ahead. Afterwards, we lay tangled together, her head on my chest, listening to the sound of wind through the trees. The weather station equipment arrives next month, she murmured against my skin. Good. The sooner you're officially moved in, the better. Officially moved in? I thought I already was. Not until your name's on the deed alongside mine. She lifted her head to look at me. Jane Phillips, Are you asking me to be your partner? In business and everything else? I'm asking you to be my everything else. The business is just the excuse. She kissed me again, and I tasted the salt of happy tears on her lips. Yes, she whispered, to all of it. 6 months later, I woke up to the sound of Chloe cursing at her laptop in the kitchen. Some things never changed, and I was grateful for it. The Phillips Torres Weather Research Station was officially operational, complete with government funding that had not only saved the ranch, but turned it into something I'd never imagined. The horses still grazed the same pastures, but now they shared the land with sophisticated equipment that tracked atmospheric conditions for the National Weather Service. I found Chloe surrounded by data printouts, her hair pulled back in the messy bun that meant she'd been working since before dawn. Problem with the system? I asked, pouring coffee for both of us. The opposite. We're getting readings that are going to revolutionize tornado prediction models. She looked up at me with the same excitement she'd shown that first day we met. Jane, we're going to save lives with this data. Pride swelled in my chest, not just for her work, but for the life we'd built together. The guest room had been converted into her office, filled with weather maps and research papers. Her clothes hung next to mine in the closet. Her terrible country music played on my radio. Speaking of saving lives, I said, Heather wants to know if you're planning to propose, or if she should stage an intervention. Chloe nearly choked on her coffee. Heather said that? She's concerned about your obvious commitment issues. My commitment issues? I moved my entire life here. Did you? Because I notice you still haven't officially asked me to marry you. The teasing died in her eyes, replaced by something more serious. Jane, is that what you want? Marriage? I want whatever makes this permanent. Legal papers, rings, the whole deal. I'm tired of people assuming you're just my research tenant. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the equipment she'd installed across my property. Our property, according to the deed we'd filed last month. I've been thinking about it, she said quietly. About making it official. But I wanted to be sure you were ready for people to know exactly what we are to each other. What we are is two women in love who've built something worth protecting. She turned back to me, and I saw the vulnerability she rarely showed. Jane, I'm 31, you're 50. People are going to have opinions. Let them. I stopped caring what people think when I realized I'd rather be happy with you than miserable without you. Even if it means coming out publicly. Small towns aren't always kind to couples like us. I stood up and took her hands in mine. Chloe Torres, I don't give a damn what anyone thinks. I love you. I want to marry you. I want to spend the rest of my life arguing about your terrible coffee and watching you get excited about barometric pressure. Tears gathered in her eyes. You really mean that? Every word. She pulled her hands free and walked to her laptop bag, rummaging through papers and equipment. Finally, she pulled out a small velvet box that made my heart stop. I've been carrying this around for 2 months, waiting for the right moment, she said, dropping to one knee right there in my kitchen. Jane Phillips, you are the strongest, most beautiful, most infuriating woman I've ever known. Will you marry me? The ring was perfect, simple, elegant, exactly what I would have chosen for myself. But what made me cry wasn't the jewelry. Yes, I whispered, then louder, yes, absolutely yes. She slipped the ring onto my finger with shaking hands, then stood up and kissed me like we had all the time in the world. So, she said when we broke apart, think Heather will approve? Heather's going to take credit for the whole thing. We spent the morning making calls to her mother, my sister, the few friends who mattered. Each conversation felt like another step toward making our future real. That evening, we walked out to the pasture, where we'd first sheltered together during the storm. The weather was calm, clear skies stretching endlessly above us. No storms on the horizon, Chloe observed, checking her phone for current conditions. Don't sound so disappointed. I'm not. Sometimes clear skies are exactly what you need. She was right. After all the storms we'd weathered, both literal and metaphorical, we'd earned this peaceful moment. When do you want to have the wedding? I asked. Tomorrow? Next month? Whenever you're ready. I've been ready since the day you showed up at my gas station. She laughed, the sound carrying across the quiet landscape. Then let's not wait. Let's get married and spend the rest of our lives chasing storms together. I kissed my fiancé under the vast Oklahoma sky, surrounded by the land that had brought us together and the future we'd built from shared dreams and stubborn determination. Sometimes the best storms are the ones that change everything.